I got circumcised a few years ago, so I'm making a few videos of my thoughts about it. I'm doing it shirtless because it's mostly gay and bi guys who would watch a video about circumcision, so being shirtless gets guys to pay more attention to my video since I'm a pretty muscular guy. Okay, so what I'm going to be saying in this video is something that pertains to guys in the USA and Canada. I'm not exactly sure how applicable it is to other countries. And the question is, do men actually want to be circumcised? And this seems to be a question that arises because it's usually a choice that a guy's parents makes for him, and not many uncircumcised men get circumcised as adults. Okay, so here's what I have to think about that. Here's a survey taken in Texas among kids born in 2014. The overall circumcision rate was 87%, and over 70% of uncircumcised men had a son circumcised. 96% of parents with an uncircumcised son were on Medicaid, where circumcision is not covered. So in this case, the cost of procedure was probably a factor for some fathers not having their son circumcised. The survey was taken in a poorer part of the USA, in Texas, as can be seen with the large number of parents on Medicaid and the low average age of the parents of just 24 years old. Here's another survey among Hispanic immigrants to the United States living in Miami, conducted by Hispanic immigrant professors at the University of Miami. 5 out of the 32 men surveyed were circumcised, and about half of the uncircumcised men said that they were considering getting circumcised themselves. But also 31 out of 32 of the men said that he would have his son circumcised. Here is a recent survey conducted by the CDC by mail on people's views on circumcision, which involves mail-in surveys to 20,000 Americans around the USA, with half the people replying. This was an anonymous survey, so there are no factors of social pressure or anything influencing these responses. 95% of circumcised men said that they would probably or definitely have his son circumcised, and also 70% of uncircumcised men said this as well. In addition, about half of respondents said that information that circumcision reduces the risk of contracting HIV made them more likely to have their son circumcised. Anyway, as can be seen, around 75% of uncircumcised American men have or plan to have their sons circumcised, which I take to mean that they would prefer to be circumcised themselves, but don't really want to actually get circumcised, which somebody who got circumcised as a young adult, I can certainly understand that. We also saw that among the Hispanic immigrant men, that when people were told about the medical benefits of circumcision, like reduced risk of contracting HIV, HPV, herpes, syphilis, penile cancer, almost all uncircumcised men wanted their son to be circumcised. I realize that some people are skeptical about these medical benefits, which is why I made a video about that too. Also, organizations like the CDC and World Health Organization have stated that there's compelling evidence to back up the benefits. We also saw that around 95% of circumcised men would have their son circumcised. So I take it that these men are all happy with having been circumcised. But what about the 5% who wouldn't? Let's go back to the CDC survey to see more about that. 6% of respondents from the CDC survey said that they probably would not have their son circumcised, and 3% said that they definitely would not. Assuming that there is a 2-to-1 distribution for probably would not to definitely would not across all groups of men, there would be a little bit under 4% of circumcised men who said that he probably would not have his son circumcised, and a little bit over 1% of circumcised men who said that he definitely would not have his son circumcised. I would guess that if a circumcised guy is unhappy with being circumcised, he would probably have responded with that he definitely would not have his son circumcised. And guys that are indifferent or maybe even happy with being circumcised, but aren't comfortable with making that choice for his own son, would respond with he probably would not have his son circumcised. So about 1% of circumcised men are unhappy with being circumcised according to the CDC survey. It's pretty clear that this 1% of the population is pretty much completely contained in the gay and bisexual community. So let's take a quick look at a survey of how gay and bis feel about circumcision. This is a survey from a gay pride parade in Florida. Half the uncircumcised men there said that they'd be willing to get circumcised. Over 80% who said that they believe circumcision could reduce the risk of penile cancer or STD said that they would be willing to get circumcised. You have to do a little bit of math to get that answer. But so even among the 1% of American men that are unhappy with being circumcised, that number would drop to 0 if these men that were unhappy with being circumcised actually believed that circumcision does in fact reduce the risk of contracting STDs. Okay, so overall I'd say that yes, everybody that lives in the USA or Canada does want to be circumcised, but that adults really don't want to have to undergo circumcision. Okay, so I'll finish up with a few stories from places that don't have a history of circumcision. Here's a study from Jamaica. After receiving information on circumcision, about half of uncircumcised men said that they would consider circumcision for themselves, and over 70% said that they would consider it for their sons. The acceptability of circumcision, of course, is quite a bit higher among men who actually say that they believe circumcision can reduce the risk of contracting STDs. Here's a study on the acceptability of circumcision in the Dominican Republic. After receiving information on circumcision from healthcare providers, 2/3 of men agreed to undergo circumcision, and 3/4 of men said that they would consider circumcision for their sons. Again, the acceptability of circumcision is higher among men that believe circumcision actually reduces the risk of STDs, which, as the World Health Organization has put it, is beyond a reasonable doubt. Here is a similar study conducted in China. 50 out of 67, which is 75%, of Chinese men between the ages of 18 and 30 said that they would consider getting circumcised.